Thanks, Liv, for the introduction. My name's Bethan. I'm a partner innovation engineer with Confluent. And yes, we just about made it over from Belfast today, just to come speak to you all. I work on the same team as Niamh here, and one of the areas we've been looking at is client applications within Kafka and how we can simplify some of the configuration process to allow people to get up and running kind of out of the box without even needing to necessarily understand all the nitty-gritty of how those underlying applications work. So today we're just going to give a quick overview of the basics of client applications and then introduce you to our Kafka client builder library that we've developed. Niamh's then going to give us a look at that in action with a demo, just using Confluent Cloud for visualization, but a demo of our producer and consumer. And then we'll wrap up. So back to the basics. You may well know client applications are fundamental to Kafka. They're at the fundamental concept of how you get data in and out of Kafka, starting with our producer. This is an application that you'll create to send your data, to write it to a Kafka topic. And we talk about events. That's something that's happened. It could be a credit card transaction, could be a shopping order, tracking page views, whatever it is. It's a piece, that piece of data that we want to record, share, process somewhere down the line with Kafka. So our producer will send that data to a Kafka topic where it will be stored as a sequence of events, related events. And finally, our consumer client application will consume, it will pull, or in other words, request that data that has been stored on the topic, those events to use. It might pass it on downstream to another application or process it in some way. And you can have multiple producers, multiple consumers, scale out horizontally, reading from the same topic, multiple topics. It's totally up to you and whatever your use case requires. So what does that look like in the real world? I'm really hoping you guys have had some pizza already tonight. But an example could be if you have an app on your phone that you're going to order some pizza from, any brand is available, and you'll send that order to a pizza order topic on Kafka. And your consumer application, which could be an ordering system, could be in the kitchen of the pizza place, will request those orders and start working on them so that you get a nice tasty pizza. But things can go wrong. If your producer hasn't been set up correctly, you're not going to be able to send your order in the first place. If your consumer's not been set up correctly, well, the kitchen's not going to get started on it for you. And worst case, everything could go wrong. In which case, well, we're in the darkest timeline and none of us would be having pizza tonight. What might those problems be? Well, the main issue when we've spoken to people about starting to use Apache Kafka is that understanding the configuration to get up and running can be a bit time consuming. It can be a bit laborious. Kafka is really flexible by design. It's brilliant. There are hundreds of properties that you can configure across Kafka that will affect the behavior of your application, affect the performance. And you want to do that. Use cases have different requirements, different data types. You might have different business goals. You want to be able to tweak your application to optimize it to suit those goals. Well, what's the downside? There are hundreds of configuration properties. And beginning to understand where to start can be a lot to take in. You need to know which configuration properties are always required, which are maybe a set of properties that you should change depending on the volume of your data, the availability, whatever it is. And there are some properties you may never want to touch. And some properties that if you start to change, well, you're going to have to change some others as well. So if you don't know where to start, it can be a bit hard to get your application up and running, which is why we started to look at developing a library called the Kafka Client Builder to minimize some of those headaches. The idea of this library is that it'll be classes to wrap around the existing producer and consumer clients, and handle some of that configuration for you. Just take it away off your plate. So with just a couple lines of code, you can get started. How does that work? Let's look at it back to our basics, back to our producer. This is a minimal configuration for Apache Kafka producer in Java. You can see we've got our properties that are key value pairs. We're setting them all up individually here. Bootstrap servers, where your Kafka brokers are located. Delivery timeout MS, how long you want to wait for a message to be sent. ACKs, what acknowledgement you want from the broker, if any. And lastly, our key serializer and value serializer. In this case, they're string serializers. These are what Kafka needs to tell it the type of your data. Then we're instantiating a producer using the built-in Kafka producer API, passing in those configuration properties. We're creating a producer record. This is your event, your key and value pair, helpfully called key, and hello, this is only one message, and we're giving it the topic we want to send it to, the demo topic. We're going to send that and then shut down the application with producer.close. This may be familiar to a lot of you. How does it look with the Kafka client builder? It's kind of familiar, kind of similar, but it's using builder pattern, which makes it a little bit more easy to understand, a little easier to read. We're passing in less configuration properties. You can see that straight away. And you can see, or you may have noticed, we're not passing in our serializers. Why is that important? Well, earlier I said the serializer is telling Kafka what data type our key and our value, our message is going to be. And why does it need to know that? Well, Kafka stores messages in raw bytes. The serializer tells it how to convert, or what it's going to convert into raw bytes. And deserializer, I mean, no prizes for guessing, but tells you how to turn it back into the data type. So if you don't specify a serializer or deserializer, Kafka isn't going to know what to do with this message. It doesn't know what it is. And you're going to start seeing errors, lovely serializer exceptions. So why aren't we passing it in? How have we avoided that? Well, we're using another library that we've created complementary to the Kafka client builder. And this is the Smart Cerdes library, Smart Serializer and Deserializer. What it does is when you start producing, it will then analyze the content of your data stream and identify what type of data it is and apply the serializer for you. There's a range of supported data types. You can see them on the screen there. So by using this, we avoid having to know to begin with what data type we're using and having to configure exactly which is the correct serializer. You could still do that if you really wanted to, but you don't have to. It takes away that hassle for you. It figures it out for you. This will be available as a separate library outside of Kafka Client Builder as well, just to let you know. So it has other applicable uses that you might be interested in as well. So that's just touching on the little glimpse of Kafka Client Builder and some of the initial features. I'm going to hand over to Niamh here to show us that a bit more in action.
I can probably just take this. Thanks very much, Bethan. Hi, everybody. So let's have a look at our producers. Just to bring everybody back, this is where the producer sits in the architecture at the very start. So we have our producer with our event, go on to our topic. This is what you're all probably familiar with. It's an Apache Kafka producer. Here we have to set a list of properties. We then pass these properties through, we call send, and then ultimately we call close. again, with all these issues, you could run into serialization issues if the data that you're sending is not the data type that you've set here in the properties. You're not going to get anywhere. Whereas with our Kafka client builder, we have this is the minimum configuration that you need, is the Bootstrap server, the topic, you call build, you pass through a message, send, and then ultimately close. It does close for you, but just out of hygiene, if you want to call close yourselves, that's perfect. That's not all you can do. The configuration is extremely flexible. Here you can see we have a data supplier, so that then will continuously produce as that data comes in. We have set the compression type to be snappy. We also have our callback. So with the callback, we can say on success, print a message. If there's an error, print a message. And here you can do anything that you want to do here in this callback, but just for the demo, we've decided just to print it out. We call send, and then we call close. If you want to add any other additional configuration, you can see at the top, we have done a hash map, and we have set our session timeout in milliseconds and then passed it through. We do actually have session timeout in the builder, but that's just, even if we have it in the builder, if you want to set in the map, it's up to you. Anything that you set in through the builder will override any configuration that we have set in the background. But we didn't just leave it at that. We took a step back and we said, can we create other profiles of configuration that people would like to use? So you can think of what I've just shown you. That's like the default, that's your starting point. So that's if you want to produce, but you don't know maybe the specs of the project. You just know right now, I just want to maybe proof of concept, get something in, get something out and work from there. So we thought then of our high throughput and our low latency profiles. So high throughput for video streaming, stock markets, low latency, fraud detection, real-time inventory. They're just examples of use cases of what you might use these profiles for. They're not set for that. That's not the be-all and end-all. You can make them into whatever configuration that you'd like. So here's what our Apache Kafka high throughput producer would look like if you were to do this today. So you have to set all the properties. You have to research these properties because, believe me, nowhere is there one place where somebody's like, that's what a high throughput producer is. We have taken time to research. There's many like Confluent blogs, expert blogs where they say what they recommend for the properties to be set. So we've kind of compiled them all together. We've set these, and that's how we have ended up with this. So much nicer than all those properties that you had set before. You just pass through the high throughput with producer profile. All those properties are set, and again, like I said earlier, in the default profile, if there's any of those properties that you don't like, you can override like the individual property through the builder. You're not set using what we have set. And this is the low latency producer. So these are all the values that you'll probably find online, and you have to spend time researching that. It's not great. Whereas with ours, all you have to do is pass through that with producer profile, low latency. So let's have a look at a high throughput producer in real life. So I'm just going to pause in a minute. So I just want to point out we have our application.properties file, and that's where we load our Bootstrap server, our topic name, and a couple of things like that. So yeah, it's playing. So here we have our properties loaded in. We have our Bootstrap server, we set our topic, and we set our producer profile. So let's just have a look at this topic in Confluent Cloud. So here we have our pizza orders topic. You can see it's empty. I'll just pause it for a minute. There's no messages. It's completely blank. It's not producing or consuming anything. So if we look back at the code, we have our supplier here, which is our pizza order supplier. That's our data. So that's our data stream. This is actually an internal tool that we use for this data stream, but you can use any data stream you like. Here we set our key and our value, and then all of the security here, that's just what we need because we're going to Confluent Cloud. That's not required. It kind of makes the code a wee bit bulkier, but unfortunately that's what we have to set. Here you have our callback. So we have our error logger and we have our info logger. So as you'll see in a minute, whenever I run the producer, we'll see if it's successful or not. And we call send, and then ultimately there's a shutdown. So now let's run it and see it working. So it's just some startup logging. And already we are sending to our pizza orders topic. So now if we go to Confluent Cloud, you will see those messages coming in. You can see the store ID, the date, the order line, so you can see if it's like a pizza, a dessert, you can see the total amount, the unit price. And from this, that's not all you can do. You can filter by store ID and so on. But for now, we've just left it as producing everything. So now that we have produced, technical difficulties with the video. Now that we have produced, let's look at the consumer. So just to bring everybody back on the same page, the consumer is here at the end. So we've already published our message into our topic, and now we need to consume that from the topic. We need to get that information out. So it's what you're all probably familiar with an Apache Kafka consumer. You have to, again, set all these properties, list of properties, pass them through to your consumer, then you set your topic, or in this case it's just called demo topic. We then poll, and then after we're polling, we are printing out the information from the message that we're getting from our topic. But with our pre-configured consumer, it's as easy as passing through the group ID, the Bootstrap server, the topic name, and calling build. And then we do a poll and then print out that result. Again, the configuration is completely flexible, just like the producer. It's up to you what configuration you want to give it, but it's not set. Again, you can pass through with additional properties. Just like the producer, we have our three profiles. We have default, high throughput, and low latency. Again, default is just your starting point. That's where if you want to just consume quickly, that's great. We have our high throughput and our low latency. So high throughput is for log aggregation and data analysis. Then we've got online gaming and IoT for low latency. So here's our high throughput consumer. Here we have to set all the properties. We have to set the key and the value deserializer. We then have to pass those properties through, and then we ultimately call poll, print them out. But with our high throughput consumer, we pass through the consumer profile, high throughput, and that's you consuming. This automatically uses the Cerdes repo that Bethan mentioned before. So it's like just goes by the data type. It is overwritable if you don't want it to go to the Cerdes library and for it to figure out the data type, because I mean it's not slow by any means, but it depends on your use case. If you don't even want those milliseconds wasted going out to that library and setting the data type, if you know what each message data type is going to be, you're more than welcome to set it in there. That is an option. We have set that in the builder. So this is what our low latency consumer looks like in Apache Kafka currently. Again, a lot more code. And with our pre-configured low latency consumer, it's as easy as passing through the consumer profile. So let's have a look at the low latency consumer in real life. So I'm gonna pause in a minute and make it big. I think you can see that fine. It's not looking to go into full screen, so looking at the TV is big enough. So again, just like the producer, we have our application.properties where we have our group ID and our Bootstrap server URL. Here you'll notice, as well as our topic, we have a dead letter topic. So if there's any issues with us consuming, we will then produce that message back onto a dead letter topic that we will have a look now in Confluent Cloud. So that's our normal topic. And there you can see we have our pizza orders topic and our dead letter topic. So now we have our low latency profile. And just like the producer, we have had to set some configuration just for it to go to Confluent Cloud. So that's all the username, password, and all this also information. We call build, and then we want to poll on our consumer, and we want to print out some information that's in the message. Lastly, we just call shutdown. So let's run it. So this is just some initial configuration logging, and already you can see, if I'm just going to pause in a minute because it will just keep consuming. You can see here, that's all the pizza orders that we have published into our topic. So we're consuming them all out. We've got our product ID category, whether there's desserts, there's pizzas, and there's sides. Okay, so that's the demo done. I'm just going to run over the profile summary. So both the producers and the consumers have the same three profiles. They have default, high throughput, and low latency. There's just some examples of what you may use these profiles for. That's not, what they're set to. It's just kind of giving people an idea of a profile that they might be interested in. So now I'm going to hand it over to Bethan.
Thanks, Niamh. Okay, so yes, we've seen them in action with Confluent Cloud just for visualization, but you might do something similar if you're using SASL authentication. If you want to connect to a schema registry and use a schema, that's what it might look like for you, or it might look totally different. As we say, we want it to be flexible depending on your use case. So that's just a little glimpse of Kafka Client Builder in action. We wanted it to be something that's intuitive. It wraps around existing producer and consumer, so it feels familiar, but it's a little less work to set up, and you can focus on the more exciting features you want to get stuck into. It's quick. The profiles that we've shown avoid you having to research any of those configuration options. You don't have to know what you need to do with buffer memory if you change batching, linger MS, any of that. You can just get it up and running with one line of your profile, and it's effortless. It's ready to go. You can use it with your Kafka on-prem or in the cloud, as we've shown. It's totally up to you. And then finally, it's coming soon. We plan to release this open source around current 2024, so mid-September, end of September. If you haven't registered, if you're planning to go, I'm sure Liv can help you out with that with a little discount code. But hopefully you'll be able to see it then, alongside that smart serializer, deserializer, the smart serialize library we mentioned as well. So that's it from us. Do you have any questions?